Russ.
Uh-oh.
Yes, it's back. I have
Just
a
in time to see me doing internal rotation stuff.
Just in time for me to lose. There we go.
Oh dear. Okay, so what's the deal?
Okay, so I have a question from Reddit that I think is, oh dear God.
Tripod malfunction. Alert, alert.
Your inexpert camera person has failed. There we go, that's wonderful.
Okay.
A person on Reddit wants to know basically how to get better at performing in tournaments. Because they went to a tournament last year, felt they did pretty well, but not up to what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Did a lot of solo training, a lot of more fitness, and did another tournament and felt like they did very poorly, and that was frustrating.
Okay.
So the question is, assuming you have skill and are in physically pretty good shape, what's the special sauce to do good in tournaments?
Okay. So, step one. Now, it may seem kind of odd for me to answer this question, but even though Winged Saber is not particularly tournament focused, that's mostly because the students themselves don't particularly care about tournaments. They care about sword fighting and having, make a big sword family. They'll tournament if it's fun, but they're not going to drive 3 hours for the purposes of a tournament. I've done a lot of tournaments, most of it in my ill-spent youth, in graduate school and archives. Well, we don't need to go there. Anyway, understand 3 things. First, it's out of your control. Pools are absolutely random, and you may wind up matched with somebody who knows what you're doing because they've fenced people who play the way you fence, and you don't know what they're doing. And while you're busy trying to go through the learning process of, for example, oh, that guy's a Meyerist. Okay, I see that stance. I know how he's going to arrange his lower legs. I have a very good idea of his distance. I know he's going to be ridiculously explosive to the tune of somewhere between 5.5 to 7 feet, but their cuts are slightly shorter range because of how they moulinet. So I can lure them into attack and stick them with the point. While you're trying to figure all that out, because you haven't actually faced somebody who fences Saber Meyer's way, they're like, oh look, a Radaelian, I know exactly what to do. I'm gonna get to their outside line and arrange my blade down their knee, and I'm gonna climb inside their pants and try to provoke them into lunging so that I can just be at core range the entire time while they go, blah, get away! That's just one example of a matchup. There are style matchups that are hilariously unfair too. One of the classic Kung Fu examples is Xingyi versus Mantis. Mantis is entirely designed to catch people when they retract their hands. Xingyi never retracts the hands. Oops. It's unusual for not doing that. All right, so you may meet people in pools that you're not prepared for, and you're in a learning process while they're executing on a known script. That will put you at a disadvantage. Who you get in pools is a factor of the draw. There are people in pools, Steel Saber and Lightsaber, who I never beat. There are people they can't beat who I put away handily every time. It's not even close. Rock, paper, scissors is a factor there as well. 2, get out of your own way. I have coached more people who are capable of performing at absolute kick-ass levels who get into a tournament and fall apart in the middle of bout 2 because they were disappointed with what turned out to be their warm-up bout, and all that internal dialogue robbed them of their ability to focus and get into the zone and execute. How do you get out of your own way? It can be mental trickery. When I was shooting archery in Hungary with the reenactors, I would very frequently just sort of still my mind and imagine a cool, dark place, and that would calm me down to the point where from 30 or 40 feet, I went from sometimes hitting the soda bottle to consistently hitting the knot tying the soda bottle to the hay bale. Now, an expert archer will tell you that's not anything to brag about in terms of accuracy, but it's a huge improvement in precision by getting out of your own way. You may need a particular song that works for you. You may need to make sure that you have the right food ahead of time. sex comes into this. Notice I said sex, not gender. If you're trans, you still need to pay attention to this. There is a difference for when testosterone gets bumped into the body. If you are biologically male and not using a number of blockers, you will have your testosterone and specifically your adrenaline, excuse me, I misspoke. Your adrenaline dump will come faster and easier. Part of being wired for 10 years less average lifespan, but 40% more skeletal muscle and that denser skeleton, is that we are designed to go, oh shit, it's go time. Women are incredibly good at long-term durability, endurance stuff. And part of that is because the adrenaline comes on more slowly. You don't want to have those reactions when you're doing stereotypical female gender stuff in an agrarian and or pre-agrarian society. If you are biologically female, you must warm up before your tournament. A guy who fights a warm-up bout goes, okay, I wasn't ready for it, but it was okay, and is then actually ready to play by bout 2, that is usually not going to be you. Most women need to go to the sidelines, bounce around, get your body up and running before they get into bouts. When I fenced collegiate foil, I had this problem as well. I am not fast to the adrenaline. So what I had to do was to make sure I got into the zone quickly. I was always the guy who was able to be very technical right off the bout, and I would fall apart later in the tournament. Other people who would go down really hard in the first few bouts would be my clutch anchors for when I would become mentally exhausted and start counterattacking rather than parry riposting during the medal bouts, during the team competitions. HEMA doesn't really have team competitions, so you can't play with those dynamics, but you can be aware of how much warm-up do I actually need. Some of you on camera have seen Kat doing her idle emote, aka the happy elf dance. Anything like that that moves adrenaline into your body is what you have to do. Warm-ups exist for a reason. You don't have to be physically hot and sweaty before you start bouting. But in a tournament setting, it is often to your advantage to hit the ground running that way and already have a sweat broken in your fencing gear before you get to that first bout, because then you are ready to go from the get-go. So, quick recap. This thing, this thing, this thing. At the end of the day, it's random. You have to get out of your own way. You have to warm up or do whatever it is that gets you in that physiological state that you can just go bang and be explosive. And D, you have to recognize something about tournaments. Tournaments are popular because tournaments are extremely effective for pressure testing, simply because it's an unwholesome environment. There's nothing pleasant about a tournament environment. It's a bunch of people standing around for their pools watching bouts, and if you know a lot of people, watching them bout is a lot of fun, and if you're like the one guest at a tournament who knows nobody, it sucks. And when you get in, this is competition. This is no longer bouting. The pressure is up. The entire tournament environment is designed to maximize the stress. Stress is a factor in tournament design, and it's intentional. And some people will go, bullshit, but you go sail through your pools and then have a 45-minute absolute cool down before going into elims, while figuring out how to budget the time you need to A, get emergency calories, B, hit the restroom and get all your gear back on, and C, see if you can stay warmed up that entire time, and tell me you don't have stress baked in that cake. So, does that answer the question, Kat?
That answers the question excellently.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I got a compliment. Oh, wait, she's from my club. She's just putting me on. All right, have fun and go do the thing. And remember, if you wind up against Olbrisky, you're going down. There are some people who are just going to go through you like a brick through toilet paper. Just be glad that you got to have a bout with one of the fencing superheroes.
We've got more videos and content coming, so if you liked what you saw and it was useful for you, please stab the like button, /subscribe, and punch the little bell icon so that you're notified immediately when new content comes available. Thanks, and go do the thing.